the recent abysmal performance of students at the WASSCE level across the country, but some of us were not surprised at the outcome of the results. In fact, that has actually been the reality over the past years, but people pretend as if they don't know what is going on at the senior high school level. In fact, the real root cause to the poor WASSCE performance is actually from the foundation. But our educational system currently is a mess. And this is what we have been living with. But left unto me alone, but if I was a policy maker from the primary school level, things need to be fixed. But a lot of the subjects that the children study at the primary school level are not necessary. But they actually need them, but they also need the foundation that can help them understand some of those subjects. And in fact, the very foundation that the children need right at the primary school level, after kindergarten, after nursery and kindergarten, the very foundation they need is in two subjects, and that is English and mathematics. These are the key subjects that will lay a strong foundation for these children understanding any other subject. Sports and culture can be added. Whilst on the timetable, there should be a slot for hobbies, which will help in talent building. Very necessary. But people do not pay attention to that. They study so many subjects at the primary school level and just study a very small aspect of the English and mathematics. But it's just like a building foundation. If you are laying a building foundation and you hurriedly put a lot of things because you want to build it fast, yes, it will be built fast. But a little, no matter how you put other layers that are even strong layers on top, it's still going to help the building. So they need a very strong background, a very strong foundation in English and mathematics. It is now going to set the pace for them to now understand all other courses and subjects as they get to the junior high school level. So left unto me alone, these two subjects, English and mathematics, should be the focus of study for the children at the primary school level. Let them pick up the very foundation in these two subjects. There is no way when this foundation is built that they won't be able to understand the other subjects and courses as they get ahead. But until you make the whole thing worse, at the primary school level, the system has asked that they should rather teach the children, they should instruct them in the L1, that's the local language, which makes the thing worse. In fact, if they do not have a strong foundation in English and mathematics, especially in English, how then are they going to understand as they get along? They get to the junior high school in the SHS. So it means everything is left for them to get to somewhere in the upper class or in the junior high school to now start building their language skills in English. And this is our problem. And some parents don't know this. They quietly, that's if they can afford, they quietly take their children to the private schools. Why? Because in the private schools, they instruct them with the English language, and that makes them different from the public schools. So left unto me alone, that is what the children need. Then when they now get to the JHS, from JHS 1, they can now start introducing the other subjects and courses. Before they now get to JHS 3, they will now be able to get themselves to understand which area they have as an interest. And this will now help them to be able to understand the courses to study at the senior high school level. By then, they've already built upon their English proficiency and built a strong foundation in mathematics. and it's going to help them. But look at what is happening. So that is one of our problems. In fact, if I was a policymaker, this is what I would do. People might disagree, but you can go and check it out. Sometimes you even interact with some of these kids, those that come to the senior high school level. When you find out they have a challenge in English and you ask them, they will tell you right from primary school to the JSS, even to the extent that at the JHS, they were still using the local language to teach them. And language we learn through practice. This is our problem. And then to make the whole thing worse, one of the other reasons, a big reason, is the advent of social media. Social media is now like an idol for a lot of students. They have no time to study. But even my time, I remember we used to write letters. When you have a friend in another senior high school, you even right from primary school to the senior high school, we used to write letters. These days, it's all about social media. Students literally spend a lot of their time on TikTok. This is what they are so ingrained into. All they do is about nakeding themselves, showing themselves on TikTok. It's all about entertainment. It's all about profanity. That's what is going on TikTok. In fact, you even find students that in the classroom, they had to use mobile phones. And you ask, how are they able to sneak in these phones to the classrooms? How are they able to have them at the various dormitories? The question is, are the school authorities not doing their job? Yes, they are doing their job. But how come they still have them? In fact, I witnessed personally a headmaster who ordered for students' phones to be seized. That was when there was a surprise check. And these mobile phones were seized and they were bent. But did that stop students from still sneaking in phones and using them? No, it didn't stop it. They will still find a way of bringing in these phones. In fact, even when class is going on, they're in a hurry so that classes will be over. They run back to their hostels and the dormitories to go and engage with their phones. They just go to dump the books somewhere. They have no time for the books. Then all they now do is to go into social media. That's all what they do. How many students write letters? But when it even comes to social media, chatting on WhatsApp, shortcuts. And it will surprise you, some come to the exam hall to write English and they use those shortcuts to write. So everything is done lazily. So they literally go to the exam hall with empty heads. With empty heads. They've learned nothing. And now you find out that a student will be at the senior high school, just his name, he cannot write. A simple sentence he cannot construct. So sometimes it saddens me at times. Teachers have to now translate whatever they're teaching them back to the local language. Why? Because if you focus with the English language, they will not understand you. That's at the senior high school. They won't understand unless you now translate back to the local language before they will not get it. So how are they going to write WASSCE? Because they're going to use this English to write the other subjects. Are they going to write it in the local language? That's our problem. And the various headmasters and headmistresses, sometimes they don't want it to appear like they are not working. Because what I even learned is that if your school underperforms, that headmaster or headmistress in that school, you'll be taken to task why your school underperformed. And they are also under pressure. They don't want that bad name. They're under pressure. Sometimes someone have to kowtow exam malpractices. And this is what has been in the system for years. And people pretend nothing is happening. A lot of these students, they come out with results that when you ask, you get shocked how they were able to perform. They perform very well because of this exam malpractice. And they get these certificates, these results that they cannot defend at the higher level. So sometimes I get scared. These are the people that are going to become nurses who are going to treat patients at the hospital. These are people that could not write their names. So these are people that are going to become lawyers. These are people that are going to become teachers. These are people that are going to become future leaders. So in fact, I'm afraid from now to the next 15 to 20 years time, if things do not change, we have no hope. So when it happened that sometimes supervision is very strict, and then these schools, they don't get a chance to engage in exam malpractice, then they are being exposed. This was now reflecting in their performance. And it's sad. So we really need to do something urgently. So this is our very problem. How do we mitigate this? How do we ensure that these things are corrected? In fact, if this is not corrected, we are in trouble. That is our problem now. How do we solve it? That's the big question. That's the big question.
Discover self.